Utah has won back-to-back Pac-12 championships, but has fallen short in each of the last two Rose Bowls. Can the Utes make it a three-peat in the Pac-12, but this time have better postseason results? That is the question that we're going to answer today. So welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, guys. We're so glad that you could join us today as we get ready to break down, analyze, and predict the Utah Utes schedule and record for this upcoming college football season. As always, please continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and check out everything down in the description below, including our expert picks over on our website, thegridironexpert.com, bringing you some of the best college football and NFL spread picks in the country for the last 5 years. We beat out over 80% of the national analysts and handicappers. Yes, better than 80% of the national handicappers each of the last 5 years. You do not want to miss out on those picks. Go take advantage of them today. Take advantage of our Patreon account as well. Exclusive college football content there year-round. Become a member of our Patreon Wall of Fame to gain access to a lot of exclusive content over there that we were really excited to get started on. And also make sure to check out the address down in the description below and send us some gear to be represented in every single Gridiron Expert video from now through eternity. Represent your team as we try to expand our GE Nation from coast to coast. All right, let's get into it. We are in the Pac-12, the thick of the Pac-12, predicting Oregon earlier today. We're now ready to take on the reigning conference champions who finished the year at 10-4 last year, but was very, very close to a very different year. A 3-point loss to Florida and a 3-point loss to Oregon very well could have seen the Utes maybe in the hunt for a Pac-12 championship, or excuse me, for a college football playoff berth. Who knows? But the Utes are on a roll under Kyle Whittingham. Back-to-back conference titles, back-to-back Rose Bowl appearances, but they're wanting more in 2023. We think they might be able to get there because the offense is loaded. The offense is loaded, but all comes down to Cam Rising's health. A phenomenal quarterback with over 3,500 total yards last year and 32 total touchdowns. Tore his ACL in that Rose Bowl loss to Penn State. His status for at least the opener of 2023 still kind of remains in the air. We got to hope he comes back 100%. If he's not, Utah's offense certainly going to take a major hit. So the offense really relies solely on the health of Cam Rising, who opted to come back this year. The offensive line, though, is amazing. He should have great protection when he is under center. Two of the top three receivers are back. They averaged 38.6 points per game last year. I can see them matching that number, if not better, in 2023. The defense, phenomenal as always. What else would you expect under Kyle Whittingham? This is not only maybe the best defense in the Pac-12, but one of the best defenses in the country. 9 starters back from last year's unit that allowed just 21.4 points per game, allowed just 111 rushing yards per game, and allowed just 223 passing yards per game. I mean, they were an unbelievable unit, and they're loaded in all aspects. Defensive line, linebacking core, secondary. They are very, very good. Very, very stingy. 6 of their top 8 tacklers are back. It's going to be hard to score against this Utes defense. There's no doubt about it. And you know what they say? Defense wins championships. You take a look at Utah's schedule. It's tough. I mean, not only is the Pac-12 going to be a gauntlet this year with the likes of USC and Oregon and Washington, Oregon State, UCLA, and even some of the lower half teams contending as well, they open up the year with back-to-back games against Power 5 opponents, opening up at home against Florida and on the road at Baylor. That's a tough slate to start the year. No cupcake teams except for Weber State in Week 3. I tell you what, in Week 1, though, let's give them that home win on August 31st against Florida. I love the Utes in this game. Yes, they lost to Florida last year in the Swamp, 29-26, but because that was because they couldn't stop Anthony Richardson. They couldn't stop AR-15. Florida rushed for 283 yards against that Utah defense. 283 yards. They had no answer for him. He was kind of an unknown factor at that point. Well, guess what? Anthony Richardson's gone. Who's Florida's quarterback now? Jack Miller? Graham Mertz? Whoever's under center, it's not going to be good for Florida offensively. Utah's defense is going to be very stingy in this game. Revenge on their mind at home, a place where Utah is 26-2 from over the course of the last 5 years. They're going to beat Florida, and I think they're going to beat Baylor on the road as well. And it's a major trap game for me. You're coming down to Waco in the heat of the fall, right there on September 9th. It's still going to be super hot down in Texas, and Baylor, a team that is set to bounce back after a disappointing 2022. Should be more solid defensively. I do love Blake Shapen at quarterback, but I'm concerned with 2 things with Baylor. I'm concerned with their offensive line, and I'm concerned with their secondary. If Cam Rising is healthy, I believe he can exploit the secondary. That offensive line, I don't think it's going to be fully up to par by Week 2, and this Utah defensive line could wreak havoc on Blake Shapen. Baylor's not going to be able to run the ball against Utah. They're going to have to win the game through the air. That secondary is going to be too good. So Utah, to me, kind of owns the edge in all areas of that Baylor game with the exception of the home field advantage. And I think it's going to be enough for Utah to overcome. They can overcome McLean Stadium. I have no doubt about that. So they beat Baylor. They're 2-0. They beat Weber State. They're 3-0. And I think they beat UCLA as well. They're 4-0. They lost to the Bruins 42-32 last year, but UCLA undergoing a lot of changes as well. Dorian Thompson-Robinson's gone. Zach Charbonnet is gone. The defense looking pretty solid. 9 starters back on defense for UCLA. Might be the best defense of the Chip Kelly era. And I have faith for whoever's under quarterback or under center at quarterback for UCLA in replacement of Dorian Thompson-Robinson. But I still think at home, working out some offensive issues for UCLA is that Utah defense is going to feast on that, revenge on their mind after suffering that loss to the Bruins that ultimately kind of put them out of playoff contention. If you remember, Utah entered the year with playoff aspirations, took that early season loss to Florida, which wasn't going to cost them a playoff berth. The loss to UCLA ultimately did and kind of was their downfall the rest of the year, even though they still won the Pac-12 championship game. So I think they get revenge over UCLA, and then they go on the road to Oregon State for an intriguing Friday night game. That's a major, major trap game if you're Utah. Because Oregon State is sneaky good this year. This is a 10-win team from last year. I think people are forgetting that. I think people are forgetting that the Beavers won 10 games last year, went 9-3 in the regular season. But I'm going to give the win to Utah in Corvallis, and here's why. Oregon State's very good. Could easily match last year's win total or could be better. They got an upgrade at quarterback in DJ Uyunglele transferring in from Clemson. That's a huge, huge boost for that offense that wasn't too bad last year. But Utah beat the Beavers 42-16 in Salt Lake City. I know the game was 21-16 in the third quarter. The Beavers were holding their own, and then Utah kind of went on a huge 21-0 run to put the game away. But Oregon State is a team that, while their offense was good last year, they are a run-first team. They've got a great running back core. Utah, I think, is going to be very stingy against the run. I think they're going to bottle that up, which means that DJ Uyunglele is going to have to win the game through the air. I don't know if I have faith in him doing that right now. The last couple of years at Clemson have not been pretty for DJ Uyunglele. Maybe he sees a resurgence in Corvallis, but I'm not going to go that far yet, especially against this good of a defense. Utah owns the defensive edge to me. Utah owns the offensive edge to me right now, assuming Cam Rising is healthy. Oregon State on a Friday night is not going to be an easy place to play, but the Utes winning by 26 points last year, I think that's a pretty big swing. Give me the Utes to win a close one over Oregon State, and they are 5-0 heading into their bye week. We'll make them 6-0 with a win over California, their first meeting against the Golden Bears since 2019. California certainly improving. Major questions at quarterback at home, off a bye. Utah, I'm not worried about it at all. Then the schedule gets tough. Look at the next couple of games. USC, Oregon, and Washington in a 4-week span. This will define Utah's season. This will define if they are Pac-12 title contenders again, college football playoff contenders again, or if they're going to fall a little bit short of their goals of a 3-peat. Well, open up that stretch, as we mentioned, on the road at USC. God, what a game this is going to be. What games they were last year, right? The regular season matchup between Utah and USC last year was unbelievable. The Utes beating the Trojans 43-42 in Salt Lake City. Cam Rising running in for that game-winning 2-point conversion. And then in the Pac-12 championship, a game that had USC won, the Trojans would have been in the college football playoff. Caleb Williams was injured, yes, but Utah wasn't losing that game. They won 47-24 in the Pac-12 championship. But now they're on the road against a USC team that returns Caleb Williams, the Heisman Trophy winner, is loaded on offense once again. The defense certainly looking better, at least on paper. I don't see the Trojans losing this game. With revenge on their mind, at home, I just don't see it. I think Utah's defense has everything in their power, and I think Utah plays them close. I don't think it's a blowout by any means. But USC, to me, isn't losing this game at home, especially after losing 2 games to the Utes last year. They're going to figure them out. They're going to come out with a vengeance, and they're going to get it. So Utah takes their first loss of the year on the road against a good Trojans team that also returns 9 starters again defensively, which could see a major, major upgrade. They're still in the hunt for college football playoff contention and Pac-12 title contention, no doubt about it. And that's going to remain the case with the win over Oregon the next week. You know, it's a tough spot here. How does Utah respond after maybe a heartbreaking loss to the Trojans? How do they do that? Well, you look at what happened last year. They lost to UCLA. The very next game, they beat USC. So I don't think there's going to be too much of a hangover. I think Kyle Whittingham's such a good coach. He's always going to have his team dialed in, ready to go. So I'm not worried about a hangover from the loss. Utah's got to be ready. They take on an Oregon team that is going to have playoff hopes of their own, Pac-12 title hopes of their own. And a loss here for Utah could put them out of Pac-12 title contention. It certainly would put them out of playoff contention. They lost to the Ducks last year 20-17 in Eugene, but honestly held their own defensively, only allowing 326 yards to that high-octane Oregon offense. The defense did everything they could turnovers for both teams were an issue, but in the end, more so for Utah than the Ducks. But I think home field advantage is key here. Last time here, they annihilated Oregon, 38-7. Killed them in Salt Lake City. Utah doesn't lose at home. Let's keep that in mind. 26-2, guys. 26-2 at home over the course of the last 5 years. And one of those losses came in the season opener of the 2020 season, which was a weird year for everybody. That COVID year, no full capacity, anything like that. So really, if you want to exclude that, one true home loss in the last 5 years. Utah just doesn't lose at home. I don't think they're going to allow them to lose at home against Oregon. It's going to be another great game. It's going to be a close game. A lot of points being scored. But Utah's defense is the difference maker here. So is home field advantage. They get the win over the Ducks. They get the win over Arizona State. They beat them by 21 last year, 34-13 on the road. Arizona State, new coach, dealing with the aftermath of the Herm Edwards situation. They're going to take some time to rebuild under Kenny Dillingham. And again, that game also in Salt Lake City. So they enter the final 3 weeks of the year, and Utah still only has one loss. They're in a better position at this point in the year than they were last year. Last year, they still won the whole dang conference. Well, they take on Washington on November 11th, and I think the hopes of a playoff berth come to an end, unfortunately, for Utah. Game that will have major implications for both teams, maybe from a playoff standpoint, but certainly from a conference title standpoint. Washington actually has won 3 of the last 4 games against Utah. And again, if you don't want to count that USC loss in 2020 for Utah at home, their last true home loss came in week 3 of the 2018 season to the Huskies. Obviously, a lot has changed over the course of 5 years, but the Huskies are going to be playing a Utah team that defensively is great, but could get exploited a little bit by the number 1 ranked passing offense from last year. Michael Penix returning for the Huskies was huge for their hopes of winning a Pac-12 championship. The Huskies return Penix. They return a majority of their pass catchers from last year. They return a defense with 8 starters back after giving up just 25.8 points per game and only 121 rushing yards per game. I think this Washington defense actually has the capability to shut down the Utah run game and force them to be one-dimensional with Cam Rising winning the game through the air. Is he capable of that? 100%. But do I have faith in Utah matching Washington's offense step for step? This passing attack that averaged over 370 passing yards per game. Now the game's in Seattle. I just don't see it. I think Washington gets a statement win over Utah in Seattle. The playoff hopes come to a crash and come to a hold for the Utes once again, but they'll close out their year with back-to-back wins over Arizona and Colorado, 2 teams that are going to be towards the bottom of the Pac-12 standings. I'd be mindful of the Arizona game, an Arizona team that has a really good passing game with Jaden DeLore, an Arizona team that upset UCLA last year, has the capability of pulling off an upset, especially with maybe being hung over after that devastating Washington loss. But again, I think Kyle Whittingham's too good of a coach to let his team do that. So Arizona is a win for Utah, and then they should torch Colorado, a team they beat 63-21. It's at home, so key for Utah. So many transfers coming in for Colorado. I'm not expecting a big year despite the whole Deion Sanders effect. I'm not buying it. It's going to be a rough year. And also factor in senior day, and Utah shouldn't lose that game. So the Utes, guys, we have at 10-2 on the year. Huge wins against Florida, Baylor, Oregon State, and Oregon. 2 losses at USC and at Washington. If you disagree with those losses, that's fine. I still think Utah's a 2-loss team this year. I just don't see them finding a way to go 11-1 or even undefeated. The schedule is too tough. The conference is too tough. I feel like USC is a for sure loss. If they don't lose to Washington, maybe they lose to Oregon, maybe they lose to Baylor, maybe they lose to Oregon State. We've got them at 10-2 with those 2 losses here, but that still could be good enough to get them to the Pac-12 championship. It's going to come down to what Oregon does, what Washington does, what USC does. It's going to be a jumbled mess at the top. A lot of solid teams. Only 2 can go to that Pac-12 title, but the Utes will find themselves in a great position to contend for a 3-peat and contend for yet another New Year's 6 bowl game. So guys, as always, thank you so much for watching us here at The Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and of course, check out everything down in the description below, including our expert picks over on our website, thegridironexpert.com, our Patreon account as well for exclusive year-round college football content, and also check out the address below. Send us some gear to be represented in every single GE video as we expand our Gridiron Nation from coast to coast. And once again, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on The Gridiron Expert.